Do you see a scientific or technical paper sometimes and just feel totally overwhelmed and not even know where to start? You're not alone. In this video, I'm going to show you a key tip for how to take a complicated and daunting paper and understand the main point in just minutes. Hey there, welcome to Science is You. Whether you're in grad school, working in a research career, or if you just want to learn more about science, my goal is for you to feel confident and empowered to understand research. So, here I've picked out some examples of typical scientific papers you might come across. When reading these papers, a big mistake that a lot of people make is just reading through the paper from beginning to end, starting with the introduction. The idea being that the intro contains all of the background needed to understand the paper. Then you get into it and run into all this vocabulary and jargon and start feeling like, oh man, maybe I'm just not smart enough to understand science after all. But the reality is there's a lot packed into these paragraphs, and it all just leads up to what the authors did. So instead of going down rabbit holes, looking up tons of terms and concepts that might not even be critical to understand the paper, we're going to skip ahead to the last paragraph of the introduction and look for a key sentence. Here we set out to. And this sentence could be something like, here we set out to, our aim was, in this paper we did something. This is sort of like the thesis sentence of the paper that states what the authors did in their research. And so we're going to pull out this sentence and look at it in some more detail. So I've highlighted some terms here that might be problematic, but it's definitely easier to focus on just a few terms in one sentence than 20 plus terms in the entire intro. Transcriptional atlas, Drosophila visual system, and circuit assembly. So if you don't know these terms, just reading through this, there are going to be some holes in your understanding. But it's important to realize that these are holes in your technical vocabulary, not holes in your intelligence or your ability to understand science. Let's go through and define these terms. Transcriptional atlas. To understand transcription, let's think about how a machine is made. To build the machine correctly, each time you have a USB containing an instruction manual that lists the parts you need and the order they fit together. But of course, in order to see and read off of the USB, it has to be first opened on the computer, the file unzipped, etc., and transcribed into a language we can understand. In this analogy, the USB is DNA, the genetic material. The machines are proteins, which are molecular machines that enable cells to carry out their different functions. And the instruction manual in the language we can read is RNA. The process of copying DNA into RNA is called transcription. But in a factory, you don't usually make just one machine. Instead, the factory is split off into many different departments, each dedicated to making different sets of machines to carry out specific purposes. Similarly, your body is compartmentalized into different organs: lungs, heart, brain, skin, etc., that are made up of cells that look very different because they are making and using different protein machinery. However, all these different types of cells generally contain the same DNA. The big mystery in science is how the instructions from this one source are released and timed to generate all these different cell types that form a harmonious single body. This is one reason why transcription, or RNA production, is a big area of study. One way to go about studying this is to map out where the different machines are being made in the factory. In other words, this map, or atlas, gives a picture of which cells are making what proteins in regions of the body. So we can rewrite the term transcriptional atlas simply as a map of where cells are making different proteins. Drosophila visual system. Drosophila refers to a type of fruit fly that's commonly studied. Why a fruit fly? Okay, so often animals such as mice, worms, or flies are used in biological experiments that can't be done on people. Although animals look very different from people, certain aspects of their behavior or growth processes are often comparable or extendable to humans, such as perhaps the visual system, referring to eyes and all the related processes that enable our vision. But to process and understand visual inputs, our eyes need to be connected with our brain. Here, the authors are studying the assembly of this circuit in the fruit fly. If we fill in our newly defined vocab with plain language, we see that the authors are making an RNA map of the developing fruit fly neurons and brain connections important in vision. Let's try out another paper. Okay, so this is a clinical study in diagnostic development, and otherwise the title looks a bit intimidating, but we're just going to pull out our key sentence again. I've highlighted some vocabulary in this sentence that might be confusing. Validate just means to test or try something out to show that it's true. Multivariate index test sounds really complicated, but the definition is actually pretty simple. If we Google the term index test, an index test in diagnostics just means a new diagnostic test that's being compared to the current standard diagnostic tests. So it's a new diagnostic test. Multivariate. If we break this up into multi and variate, we get multiple variables, or factors, measurements, etc. So a multivariate index test is simply a new diagnostic test that takes multiple factors into consideration. Now, why everything has to have an acronym in science, I have no idea. Acronyms are the fastest way to make a simple topic look insanely complicated, so perhaps it helps us scientists feel more intelligent. However, acronyms can easily be converted back to their traditional, plain language counterparts if we scan back through the intro, or just do a Control F and search for them. And here we see NASH is the most severe form of another acronym. Okay, so that wasn't very helpful, but let's look up this other acronym. There it is right there, actually, and we can see that NASH is just a type of liver disease. So if we go back to our sentence with these terms filled in, we see that the authors are evaluating a new diagnostic test that takes multiple factors into consideration for ruling in or out a type of severe liver disease. I hope this video has helped you feel more empowered reading scientific literature. Most importantly, take away the key realization that holes in your vocabulary or knowledge base are not holes in your intelligence or your ability to do science. And remember,